The Virginia Cable Telecommunications Association and your local cable provider presents Cable Reports. Join us now as Cable Reports brings you up to date on current issues facing the Commonwealth through discussions with your local legislators and other policymakers from across Virginia.
From the General Assembly and the City of Richmond, I'm Woody Evans for Cable Reports, brought to you by the Virginia Cable Telecommunications Association and Comcast, connecting Virginians to their government. We're pleased to have Delegate Tony Wilt with us today. Welcome, sir.
Good morning, Woody. Good to be with you.
So I believe your district encompasses the city of Harrisonburg, which is the county seat for Rockingham County.
That's correct, and also includes predominantly northwestern Rockingham County, and swings a bit to the east, takes in Massanutten, the ski area.
Okay,
there.
Massanutten.
Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting. Tell us a little bit about your district, especially the economy and how it's faring now.
I often tell people, Woody, that we're kind of staying under the radar, if you will, but certainly we've had our economic challenges there, but we're fortunate in that our economy's pretty diverse. We have a good mixture of what I call institutional with James Madison, some other local universities and colleges, and with we don't have any big industry, but we have a fair level of commercial and residential. Agriculture, as you know, is certainly big. So we have a fairly diverse economy there, and so we don't necessarily rise and fall as steeply as some other areas that maybe are more singularly focused. And so that's helped us ride out past storms in the most recent. Right. While it was tough, you know, we've kind of held our own, and we're starting to see things gradually come back there in the valley.
So unlike Hampton Roads, for example, in Northern Virginia, your district has not been as affected by the across-the-board sequestration cuts in Washington, D.C.
Exactly. But we have felt some of those effects, but you know, probably a bit more indirectly, and not as directly as Hampton Roads in Northern Virginia.
Right. And I understand that you and Delegate Steve Landis had a town hall meeting before the session began. Mm-hmm. Listened to your constituents. What were their major concerns? Well,
there was we have an issue, you know, right in the immediate area. There's debate on whether to build another jail. And so that was, excuse me, that was on a lot of folks' minds. But right now, that's in the local stage, and so we kind of, you know, expressed that really wasn't the time for us to be getting involved. And there's a lot of efforts. I'm hopeful that is the powers that be there and get together with the citizens and they work together to, you know, if there's some alternative solutions to incarceration, they'll be able to find those and find an amiable solution going forward.
Now, you're a businessman, and you understand the need for government to get out of the way. Government doesn't create jobs, but it can create an environment which allows the private sector to bloom. Talk to us about that.
Well, you're exactly right in that those are probably, you know, from a regulatory and definitely, you know, the effects that those come into play, that they you know, restrict businesses from really blooming and growing, if you will. And ultimately, we're here in Richmond, and you know, our government in D.C., predominantly what we all deal with, I hate to say it, and I certainly don't mean it to sound heartless, but we're dealing primarily about money, okay? Mm-hmm. And so that money comes from the taxes that people pay from all varying degrees. That's where the monies get delved out, if you will. And so it's a pretty simple formula. Folks have to be able to work and to be able to thrive, the individuals, the businesses, in order to generate that tax revenue that then comes here, and we get to delve out and support the various programs that are important to Virginians.
Now, what about the ability in your district to attract high tech? I noticed there's something called Innovation Village at Rockingham. Mm-hmm. Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, we're you know, we want to be able to be in that discussion as well. Oftentimes, Folks may think that technology, high-tech jobs are something for Northern Virginia, but we certainly think that we have a lot to offer there in the Valley as far as, you know, everything else that plays into that. Create the jobs, but then also we have great schools and great safe communities in which to live in, raise your family, and so well, we want those businesses to look at the total package and be able to come and have an atmosphere, a business atmosphere, if you will, to set up shop and right there at home.
Now, what about transportation issues? You're right off Interstate 81, which is north-south, and I guess the east-west interstate is Interstate 64 towards the south, and up north you've got I-66, which is east and west. How critical are those corridors for the area you represent?
Well, they're very important, Woody. They a lot of that traffic that travels the east and west corridors, a lot of it passes then through my district. And so we are always looking at traffic issues, congestion and so forth. And I know a lot of folks would argue, well, you don't have the problems we have in Hampton Roads or Northern Virginia. But it's, as I say, it's the economy of scale, if you will. For us, oftentimes those are big challenges that we have. But I will say that that's not unlike the rest of the state. I certainly recognize the issues that Hampton Roads and Northern Virginia have as far as congestion. We're, in my opinion, we're woefully behind funding that we need to look at new infrastructure. But the big challenge that we have to somehow solve, and I think there's some measures to do that, we've got to take care of the funding for maintenance to keep up with what we already have. And I'm a firm believer in that too. Take care of what you have before you build new. But unfortunately for us in transportation, we're facing both of those challenges, Woody, and we have to have some serious discussion. And I see some slow progress in that arena. But it's very important to us in the Valley because we are a main thoroughfare for the north and south, and picking up some of that traffic coming from the other directions.
Now, what about secondary roads in the county, for example? I understand for the last few years that the counties have been strapped and they haven't been able necessarily to maintain those secondary roads.
Well, I'm certainly proud of our local VDOT offices, the way, and that's every community I'm sure would brag and say, yeah, that's us too. But I wanna put in a good word for them of squeezing out every penny that they can get, every value of every penny that they get, and towards that goes towards road maintenance and keeping up with our secondary roads, getting the biggest bang for our buck, so to speak. And trying to keep up with those issues and trying to prioritize, you know, which roads need the most attention, when, and keeping them in the queue, and they do a bang-up job. They really do, and keeping a handle on all of it, and seeing to the different not programs, but needs. Bridges and paving, and as it all fits into transportation. They do a great job in trying to get it all lined up and take care of it as need arises.
You mentioned agriculture earlier as a driving force in the economy. Talk to us in a little bit more detail about what kind of products are produced there in your district.
Well, we're proud of our poultry. That's, we consider ourselves the poultry capital of the world, and rightfully so. It's a huge economic driver for us there. Not just for the farmers that farm it, but the ancillary jobs that come out of that. My own business, it's directly affected by how well the agriculture business grows, the agribusiness grows in that area. And it's, as you've seen, former Governor McDonald saw the value in agribusiness and forestry as it relates to the whole state. Governor McAuliffe has seen the same thing, have committed to see agriculture grow and see it as a viable economic engine for the state of Virginia, to bring in, again, those much needed funds to take care of the business that Virginia needs taken care of.
Now, how about tourism? Is that an economic driver as well?
Oh yeah, it is, and for all of Virginia. That's what better state, I think. I'm pretty prejudiced, but you know, what better state could we live in? We have, in just a few short hours, you can go we have our beaches, you can come up my way to the mountains, you can go down to bigger mountains in Southwest, and the Dismal Swamp on the south side. I mean, just such a diverse you know, regions that we have throughout the state. And I don't want to leave out Northern Virginia, even traveling into D.C., but what we have in Northern Virginia as far as, you know, a lot of the cultural things there in greater numbers. I mean, it's so diverse, and so tourism plays a great part in our economy here in Virginia. It draws people in from all over the nation, all over the world, to see the great things that we have here.
How has housing fared in your district since the Great Recession?
Yeah, it's coming back. It's coming back. We're seeing probably a fair, I don't want to misspeak, but it seems to me there's a lot of multifamily housing coming back, and that's substantiated by the things I've read and heard, that's reflective of a lot of our younger society today. They tend to be, for various reasons, more transient. They're not as tied into, say, a job or to what other things might tie them to a community. Not that they don't value family, but they're ready at the drop of a hat to pack up and move to somewhere else. And so they're not looking for, and their lifestyles. They're not into mowing yards and fixing fences. They want to be more mobile. They enjoy being out and with one another, and so all those things combined lends itself to a more robust multifamily housing construction and so forth. That's, you know, one of the trends that we're seeing.
Now, as you indicated earlier, money, or the budget, is the driving force here. It sets a lot of policy. Where you put your money indicates what's important to the Commonwealth. Understand that the Speaker has directed the Appropriations Committee to in essence adopt a procedure which will allow for more transparency in the way the budget is handled, so that members like you who may not be on appropriations will have a better understanding of the budget once it's presented to you.
He has, and I'm especially proud of the Speaker for having the foresight to do that. One may say, well, why haven't y'all done that before now? But really, it's very timely in the Speaker's efforts to take the lead on that and make our budgetary processes more transparent, not only to us. I mean, because it is, you're exactly right, Woody, trying to grasp everything that's in that big thick document in such a short period of time. Take some very long nights to try to go through all that and pick out the points and to understand fully what we're doing. So I certainly applaud the Speaker's efforts to make those things known to everyone, but also the public. The public that's following, they deserve to know, and so it's all going towards that thing that I believe all citizens are demanding, is a more transparent government. You know, what are we doing here, and what are we doing with their money, and so forth. And that's a thing that I often hear as much as anything. Not necessarily, nobody likes to raise taxes, but as importantly is what we're raising and looking at that, they also want to know that we're using it wisely. And I think the Speaker's efforts in this more transparent budget process goes right to the heart of that.
So I understand it'll be available 48 hours before there's any further activity on it. It's going to give you a better understanding of what the conference committee came to and why. It will also give you a better understanding of what other additional matters may have been inserted into the budget that weren't in there at the beginning of the process.
Yeah, exactly. And as you well know, you've been around here a while, Woody. You can take the budget or any other idea. You can start out with as it's written here, and somewhere along the process, things can be changed. It can be added or taken away. That can change the whole intent or the complexity of whatever the bill. Here we're talking about the budget, and it can. And unknowingly, and not with any particular harm intended, but changes can happen that folks maybe didn't foresee. And so this is going to be, I think, a great step forward in helping prevent those unintended consequences, if you will.
And I know you're an avid sportsman, promoter of hunting. We were talking earlier about the bill that instituted Sunday hunting.
Oh, yeah.
Just this last hunting season. How has that worked out, and what other things do you think are necessary to continue to promote sportsmanship and hunting?
Well, that's a great question, Woody. And last year going in, there was a lot of speculation. I've actually talked to conservation officers. I've talked to them personally, and they'll admit, and rightfully so, it was kind of a gamble, if you will. Exactly how's this thing going to play out, the Sunday hunting? How's it going to go? What's going to happen? What's going to be the results of it? And they've told me that it really came in like a lamb. They were expecting it to come in like a lamb, much like March's weather. But many of the things that they anticipated have just not proven to be so. It's no more problems than any other hunting day, and what it's done is provide opportunities for folks that are. We talked about the economy. Things are still tough on people, and they have to work oftentimes 6 days a week, and not having that opportunity to be able to go out enjoying the hunting opportunities, and it allows them to do that, and so it's. Overall, it's been a big help, and it has not been the problem that some folks were afraid that it would be.
It also has the potential to get avid hunters from bordering states that may not allow hunting on Sunday to come in, and that helps our economy as well.
You're exactly right. That's an important part of it. And as you said earlier, some of the things going to the overall idea of hunting. My wishes are that we continue to move in that direction of seeing hunting as a viable, just like we talked earlier about the agriculture.
Right.
Now talking about hunting itself, enjoy hunting and fishing, the outdoor activities, seeing those as viable economic drivers. We see that in a lot of the western states, and I know people probably get tired of me referring to the western states, but it's a fact. I mean, it's a vital part of many of the western states' economies, hunting and fishing, the outdoor activities. And I'd like to see Virginia move more in that direction and being more proactive and taking care of our wildlife and enhancing the opportunities there for citizens and the non-residents as well to be able to take care of or take advantage of what we have here. And so I'm excited to continue to work with efforts. I mean, we're starting to see some of that now. I think, and it even goes to the judiciary. I think we need to take more serious issues like poaching and things like that. If there's an area that back home that folks get so disgruntled with is folks that break the law and abuse our wildlife and our privileges in the national forests and on state lands. They abuse it in any various ways, and it just doesn't seem like they get punished. Perhaps the courts don't take it as serious as they do other crimes, and it is serious. And if we're gonna transform, that arena into an economic engine, we need to. That would be one of the places to start.
Another serious discussion that's going on, as always, is about education. I understand that in the budget, we're going to hold harmless K through 12, and to some extent our institutions of higher learning. How important is that?
Well, it's important, Woody. We know how important an educated society is to so many aspects of society, and especially as we talked about our workforce. We still need. That doesn't automatically transcend to you have to have a college education, but you got to be educated in any given job to perform it better, because technology is changing, say in welding. We need welders, but that technology is changing. So individuals have to be educated in that. And there's certainly room for the four-year colleges. And I think Virginia's doing a great job in realizing the advantages of a better educated workforce throughout, because there's jobs for everyone, and we're making that connection. I'm especially proud of the folks up in the valley at home that I think do a masterful job in tying that in with from K-12 to our trade schools. We have a great MTC there in the city of Harrisonburg. We have them, we have community colleges, and we have the four-year schools, and taking an all the above approach and realizing that each one of those can tie in to have a better educated workforce. be it the welder or a bricklayer, if you will, are going on into the jobs that are afforded, in the higher learning technology and education and whatnot.
No question about that. Now, part of that discussion, especially K through 12, has involved over the last couple of sessions the issue surrounding the standards of learning and how many of those tests are administered, especially at the lower grades. And now I think we're looking at reducing the number of those tests that are administered even at the high school level. Are you hearing much about that from your constituents?
Absolutely. Woody, I try to talk to the teachers. They're the ones, and I value administration and everyone's point of view in the arena of education. But especially, I think we need to listen to our teachers. They're the boots on the ground. They're the ones that are every day dealing hands-on with our children, and so that's where I go for a lot of my feedback. How are these things affecting you in the classroom? And Woody, I've found over the years that teachers are ready for the challenge. They're ready for standards. They don't shy away. You measure me. You put me up. I'll do my job. You tell me where I'm not. But we can't overwhelm them. And that's basically what's happened with the No Child Left Behind from years ago. I liken it oftentimes to a pendulum. We were over here, and in our efforts to meet those goals, we swung way over here. And what I think we're seeing now, thankfully so, we're seeing that pendulum come back. We're seeing the different parties from the legislature and the education side, those folks coming back to the table and say, all right, here's what worked. Here's what didn't work. Now let's start trimming this down and because ultimately we want better educated children. The citizens want a better bang for their education buck, so to speak. And so that's what I feel like is happening right now. Everybody's coming back to the table, and when we're looking at those tests, yeah, the tests are fine, but you can't test just to be taking a test. It has to mean something, and where are we overdoing it? And so I'm excited. I'm excited about the reform that's happening in that arena.
So what about this move last year to grade local schools on a scale of A to F? How was that received locally? Not
very well. Not very well at all. And so that's one of those things. I think it was an attempt originally to make, because schools were graded. Schools were already graded, but it was pretty convoluted. It was difficult for a lot of people, parents, citizens, to be able to break all that down. What does that mean? How does, with warning and with, it was really confusing. And so that was an attempt to make it more understandable to the average citizen. Grade them just like you do our children, A through F. But that was one of those things. There was potential unintended consequences, and folks related that to businesses that would come in, and you could see the school is having a nominal grade, if you will, and the other part of that was that we see advances being made is allowing for improvement being made. Okay. We were lumping it in and said, well, you have to meet this level. Well, if you started down here and you got halfway there was no credit for that. It was just, it was like an all or nothing. And so we're working on that to recognize where the advances are made, the improvements are being made, and so that's another positive step that we're going in as far as education.
Another well-intentioned but maybe ill-conceived piece of legislation was the one that would have allowed the state to take over a local school district if it was failing. We definitely need to help those schools. I believe that legislation was declared unconstitutional, but that was another one that caused quite a bit of debate, especially at the local level.
It did. You're exactly right. And I think, for me, I think what it did was open the eyes to folks that you couldn't question. We had those schools that were failing for quite a while. and nobody was doing anything about it. And who ultimately suffered there but the children,
right.
the students that were coming, that were being denied a quality education for whatever reason. I won't get that far in the weeds, but nothing was changing. We were settling for the status quo. So I think that was an honest effort to, if nothing else, shake some people awake, right, and say, hey, it's not going to be business as usual. And I'm hoping we'll see some improvements in those affected school districts, and folks are up in their game, so to speak.
Now, you mentioned Blue Ridge Community College. It's an important asset in your community. Our entire community college system is. Talk to us about the importance of that, especially in relation to returning veterans who have skills they have acquired while in our theaters of war. They could be translated into employment opportunities.
Oh, absolutely. That's well, we're really proud of Blue Ridge Community College. It serves our portion there in the valley. They're just an invaluable resource. The impressive thing that they're able to do, they have a bit of a different role than a four-year university. And what's most impressive, Dr. Downey and his staff, is that they go around to the local business. That's one of those things that I think that we certainly lead on in the valley, is that Dr. Downey goes out and asks the businesses, what do you need? What kind of workers? What do they need to be trained in? What are the jobs you're doing that we can help you prepare these? I mean, what a better fit. And it's working out, and that relates back then even to the trade schools,
right.
MTC and so forth, and helping prepare folks to move in and be active participants in the workforce, instead of kind of foundering, if you will, and really helping them develop meaningful skills that will help them and help the community.
Now, there's ethics reform on the agenda. There's a perception that something needs to be done here in Richmond to guide the members of the General Assembly so that the public at least regains the trust that apparently has been lost. What do you think is going to happen this session in that regard?
Well, we're definitely looking at some reforms, and I know the governor formed a commission to look at it. We've been looking at a lot of issues on ourselves, and so I think bits and pieces of all that's probably going to come together and develop an ethics reform package that'll be a benefit to the citizens of Virginia. It really will, and it will serve as a guideline, I hope, to we legislators to help us. This is what you can do. This is what you can't do, and some of those areas were kind of gray before, and I think it'll help clear up some of those areas.
One other subject. There's about 30 seconds left. There's widespread reports of sexual violence on our campuses. UVA was highlighted some time ago. Apparently something's going to be done in that regard as well this session.
Oh yeah, there's multiple efforts, legislation out there, and again, those will come together, I think, to form a comprehensive plan to go forward to address that very important issue of sexual violence in our schools and institutes of higher learning, and it's time has come. It's much needed.
Great. Well, thank you for being here, Delegate Tony Wilt. Good luck in the remainder of the session.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for watching Cable Reports, brought to you by the Virginia Cable Telecommunications Association and Comcast, connecting Virginians to their government. Until next time, I'm Woody Evans. Mm-hmm.